Jordan Carter leaned back in his first-class seat and closed his eyes. The past week had been long and tiring. At 25, Jordan worked harder than most people his age. He managed several projects for his father's charitable foundation, and he had just finished setting up a new program to help kids from poor neighborhoods go to college. Jordan's father, Darius Carter, was one of the richest men in America. He had built a phone company from nothing and turned it into a business worth billions. But Darius never let his son take the easy way. Jordan had gone to regular public schools. He had worked summer jobs. And now, even though he could have any job in his father's company, Jordan chose to run the foundation instead. The flight from New York to Los Angeles would take 6 hours. Jordan planned to sleep for most of it. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and white sneakers. They were expensive brands, but nothing flashy. Jordan never liked to show off his family's money. Other passengers filed onto the plane. Jordan noticed some of them looking at him, then quickly looking away. He was used to it. Being a young black man in first class still made some people uncomfortable. Jordan didn't care. He had earned his seat, and he had every right to be there. A middle-aged white woman with blonde hair stepped into the first-class cabin. Her name tag read, Nancy Powell, Senior Flight Attendant. She greeted the other passengers with a bright smile, but when she got to Jordan, her smile faded a little. "Excuse me," Nancy said, leaning down. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" Jordan opened his eyes fully. He had heard this question many times before. "Yes, 3A. That's what my ticket says." Nancy's face tightened. "First-class boarding finished 10 minutes ago. Economy passengers should wait until their group is called." "I'm in first class," Jordan said calmly. He reached for his phone to show her his electronic ticket. Nancy crossed her arms. "Sir, if you're confused about the boarding process, I can help direct you to your proper seat." The man across the aisle, an older white businessman, looked up from his newspaper. A few other passengers turned to watch. Jordan took a deep breath. He knew getting angry would only make things worse. "I'm in the right seat. I'm a first-class passenger." "Let me see your boarding pass then," Nancy said, her voice getting louder. Jordan showed her the ticket on his phone. Nancy glanced at it quickly. "This doesn't look right," she said. "These electronic things can be confusing. Why don't you move to economy for now and we can sort this out later?" The businessman across the aisle spoke up. "Excuse me, but if his ticket says he's in first class, why are you questioning him?" Nancy shot the man an annoyed look. "I'm just doing my job, sir." Jordan felt his heart beating faster, but he kept his voice steady. "I belong in this seat. I paid for it. Please check your passenger list." Nancy's face grew red. She was having a bad day already. This was her third long flight this week. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. Her boyfriend had called that morning to break up with her. Her rent was late, and now this young man was making her job harder. "Listen," she said, lowering her voice. "We both know you're not supposed to be here. Don't make me call security." A few passengers gasped. Jordan felt a familiar mix of anger and sadness rise in his chest. No matter what he achieved, no matter how hard he worked, some people would always see his skin first and nothing else. "Check your list," Jordan said firmly. "My name is Jordan Carter, seat 3A. Something in the way he said his name made Nancy pause. Carter. She had heard that name before. Another flight attendant, a younger woman named Kate, approached them. "Is everything okay, Nancy?" Nancy gestured at Jordan. "This passenger claims he has a first-class ticket." Kate looked at Jordan, then at her tablet. "Mr. Carter in 3A? "Yes, he's on my list. Is there a problem?" Nancy's face changed. "Carter? Wait. Are you related to Darius Carter?" Jordan didn't answer. He shouldn't have to explain who his father was to be treated with respect. Kate's eyes widened as she made the connection. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry for any confusion. Can I get you a drink before takeoff? Water, juice, champagne?" But Nancy wasn't ready to back down. She had gone too far to admit she was wrong now. "He didn't show me a proper boarding pass, and he wasn't wearing a first-class tag on his luggage." "Because I don't have luggage," Jordan explained. "Just my backpack. I'm only staying in LA for one night." Nancy felt embarrassed and angry. She was sure he had just talked his way into first class somehow. Maybe he knew someone. Maybe he had flirted with the gate agent. Young people always thought they could get away with breaking the rules. "I need to see some ID," Nancy demanded. The plane was fully boarded now. The captain announced they would be taking off soon. People were watching the scene unfold with uncomfortable expressions. Jordan reached for his wallet and pulled out his driver's license. As he handed it to Nancy, a business card fell out, the special black card that his father had given him for emergencies, with the Carter Telecommunications logo and his father's direct number. Nancy saw the card and froze. But instead of admitting her mistake, she grew more flustered. This could be fake. Anyone can make a business card. The other passengers were staring openly now. Some had their phones out, recording the interaction. Jordan saw the phones and felt a wave of exhaustion. He didn't want to be another viral video. He didn't want to be another example. "Please give me back my ID," Jordan said quietly. "I'm not done checking it," Nancy snapped. "You've had enough time," Jordan replied. "That's my property." Nancy stepped closer, invading his personal space. "Are you telling me how to do my job? I've been flying for 20 years. I know when someone doesn't belong in first class." Jordan stood up. He was tall, but he was careful to keep his hands visible and his posture non-threatening. "I'd like to speak to the head flight attendant or the captain, please." The businessman across the aisle spoke again. "This is ridiculous. Leave the young man alone." Nancy felt cornered. Everyone was watching her. She was being challenged in front of an entire cabin of passengers. 20 years of built-up stress, thousands of entitled passengers, countless sleepless nights, and the constant pressure to smile through it all. It all boiled over in one terrible moment. She raised her hand and slapped Jordan across the face. The sound echoed through the quiet cabin. Passengers gasped. Kate covered her mouth with her hand. Jordan stood perfectly still, his cheek stinging. Nancy seemed shocked by her own action. She stepped back, her hand still raised. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Jordan slowly sat back down. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He simply reached for his phone. "Who are you calling?" Nancy asked, her voice shaking. Jordan looked her directly in the eyes. "My father." Nancy's face went pale as the reality of what she had done began to sink in. Kate rushed to the cabin phone to call the captain. The other passengers were all recording now, their phones pointed at the scene. Jordan spoke quietly into his phone. "Dad, I need your help." 10 minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay, but this flight has been temporarily grounded due to an administrative issue. Please remain seated. We'll update you shortly." As the announcement ended, the cabin door reopened. 3 people in suits walked onto the plane, their faces serious. The airline's logo was pinned to their jackets. They walked straight to row 3. Nancy Powell stood in the galley, watching them approach Jordan Carter, the son of the man who owned 30% of the airline's parent company. She knew her career was over, but what she didn't know was how this moment would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone on that plane. The 3 airline executives moved quickly through the cabin. The lead woman, with short gray hair and a dark blue suit, stopped at Jordan's seat. Her name tag read, Patricia Dawson, Vice President of Customer Experience. The 2 men behind her looked nervous, their eyes darting between Jordan and Nancy, who stood frozen in the galley. "Mr. Carter," Patricia said, her voice low and serious. "On behalf of Skyline Airlines, I want to express our deepest apologies for what happened today." Jordan touched his cheek, which still felt warm from the slap. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Patricia nodded. "Your father contacted our CEO directly, but even without that, this kind of behavior is completely unacceptable." She glanced back at Nancy. "May we speak somewhere more private?" Jordan stood up. The other passengers watched with wide eyes and whispered to each other. Some still held their phones up, recording everything. The businessman across the aisle gave Jordan a sympathetic nod. Patricia led Jordan to the front of the plane, into the small space just outside the cockpit. The two male executives stayed behind and approached Nancy. Ms. Powell, one of them, said, "We need you to gather your things and exit the aircraft now." Nancy's face turned white. "I made a mistake. I was just not here." The executive cut her off. "This isn't a discussion." In the front of the plane, Patricia spoke to Jordan in a gentle voice. "Mr. Carter, we're removing Ms. Powell from this flight immediately. We'll also need statements from you and other witnesses. The company is prepared to take whatever action you feel is appropriate." Jordan ran his hand over his short hair and sighed. "I don't want to cause more trouble. I just want to get to Los Angeles." "Of course," Patricia said. "But we take physical assault very seriously. Ms. Powell's actions violated company policy, and possibly the law. This incident will be fully investigated." Jordan thought about Nancy's face right after she slapped him, the shock in her eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she had done. He had seen that look before. People who acted out of bias often felt remorse afterward, but by then, the damage was done. "What will happen to her?" Jordan asked. Patricia's professional mask slipped for a moment. "Honestly, she'll be fired. There's no coming back from this kind of incident." Jordan nodded slowly. He understood consequences. His father had taught him that actions always had results, good or bad, but he also believed in second chances. "The other passengers," Jordan said, "they've been sitting here for almost 30 minutes now." "We're working on getting a replacement crew," Patricia explained. "Unfortunately, that means the flight will be delayed by at least 2 hours. We'll offer compensation to everyone, of course." Jordan frowned. 2 hours was a long delay. Some passengers might miss connections or important meetings, all because of what happened to him. The plane felt tense and uncomfortable. Jordan could see passengers checking their watches and sighing. A mother tried to calm her crying baby. An elderly man asked a flight attendant when they would take off. The flight attendant didn't have an answer. Jordan took out his phone again. His father answered on the first ring. "Jordan, are you okay?" Darius Carter's deep voice carried the weight of his concern. "I'm fine, Dad. But they're delaying the whole flight to get a new crew. A lot of people will be affected." Darius was quiet for a moment. "Do you want me to arrange a private jet for you?" Jordan shook his head, even though his father couldn't see him. "No, that's not the point. I don't want special treatment. I just don't want everyone else to suffer because of what happened to me." "I understand," Darius said. "Let me make some calls. There should be a standby crew at the airport." "Thanks, Dad." "Jordan," Darius said before hanging up, "I'm proud of how you're handling this." Jordan put his phone away and walked back to Patricia, who was talking to the captain near the cockpit door. "Ms. Dawson," Jordan said, "is it possible to find a replacement crew faster? I spoke with my father and he thinks there might be a standby crew available." Patricia looked surprised. "We're checking all options, Mr. Carter. But airline operations are complex and—" The captain, an older man with salt and pepper hair, interrupted her. "Actually, I just got word that a standby crew can be here in 20 minutes. They were about to start their rest period after a canceled flight." Patricia blinked. "That's unusually efficient." Jordan offered a small smile. "My father can be persuasive." Meanwhile, at the back of the plane, Nancy gathered her small travel bag with shaking hands. The other flight attendants avoided looking at her. Kate, the younger attendant who had recognized Jordan, whispered to her as she passed, "Do you know who he is? His father owns almost a third of Skyline's parent company. He sits on the board." Nancy felt sick, not just because she had ruined her career, but because she had judged someone based only on how they looked. She had worked with all kinds of passengers for 20 years, rich, poor, famous, ordinary. She had always prided herself on treating everyone equally. Yet today, she had failed completely. As Nancy walked down the aisle toward the exit, she kept her eyes on the floor. She couldn't bear to look at Jordan or the other passengers, but as she passed row 3, she stopped. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am so sorry." Jordan looked up at her. Her eyes were red, and her hands trembled. He saw not just fear for her job, but genuine regret. "I know," he said simply. One of the executives gently took Nancy's arm and guided her toward the door. As they left, the captain made another announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We're waiting for a new flight crew who should arrive shortly. We expect to depart within the hour. Thank you for your patience." The passengers groaned and sighed. Some looked angrily toward Jordan, assuming he was the cause of their delay. Others, who had witnessed the incident, defended him to those sitting nearby. A young woman across the aisle leaned toward Jordan. "I got it all on video," she said. "What she did was wrong. You should sue the airline." Jordan shook his head. "That won't solve anything." "But people need to know this stuff still happens," the woman insisted. "I could post it online. It would go viral for sure." Jordan thought about it. He understood her point. Maybe sharing the video would raise awareness about bias. Maybe it would help someone else, but it would also turn a painful moment into entertainment. It would define Nancy by her worst mistake, and him by a moment when he was treated badly. "Please, don't," he said. "Some things should be dealt with privately." The woman looked disappointed but nodded. 20 minutes later, a new flight crew boarded the plane. The lead flight attendant, a tall black woman with a warm smile, introduced herself to the cabin. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denise, and I'll be your lead flight attendant to Los Angeles today. My team and I are here to make your flight as comfortable as possible. We should be taking off in about 15 minutes." As Denise and her team prepared the cabin for departure, Patricia Dawson returned to speak with Jordan one last time. "Mr. Carter, is there anything else we can do for you?" Jordan thought for a moment. "Actually, yes. May I address the cabin before we take off?" Patricia looked surprised but nodded. "Of course." Once the safety demonstration was complete and the plane began to push back from the gate, Denise handed Jordan the cabin phone. He stood up and spoke to the passengers. "Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Carter. I want to apologize for the delay today. What happened earlier was unfortunate, but I never wanted it to affect your travel plans. I believe the airline is offering compensation for the inconvenience, and I thank you for your patience." He paused, looking around at the faces watching him. "I also want to say that one person's actions don't define an entire company. The flight attendant who left the plane made a mistake, as we all do sometimes. I hope we can all move forward and have a pleasant flight to Los Angeles. Thank you." Jordan handed the phone back to Denise and sat down. The cabin was quiet for a moment. Then several passengers began to applaud. The businessman across the aisle reached over and shook Jordan's hand. "That was class, young man. Pure class." As the plane finally took off, Jordan looked out the window at New York getting smaller below them. He thought about Nancy and wondered what would happen to her now. He thought about the video that might still end up online. He thought about all the other times he had been judged unfairly, and all the times he would be judged in the future. He took out his phone and texted his father. "We're in the air. Thanks for your help. Can we talk later about something important?" Darius replied immediately. "Anytime, son. What's on your mind?" Jordan typed, "I have an idea about how to make something good come from this." The flight to Los Angeles was smooth. Jordan spent most of it thinking about what had happened and what he wanted to do next. By the time the plane landed, he had a clear plan in mind. He waited until most passengers had left before he stood up to get his backpack. Denise, the lead flight attendant, approached him as he prepared to leave. "Mr. Carter, someone from airline management will meet you at the gate. They want to make sure everything is taken care of." Jordan nodded. "Thank you, Denise. You and your team did a great job today." She smiled. "Just doing our job, sir." As Jordan walked off the plane, he saw a man in a suit holding a sign with his name. The man introduced himself as Steve Goodwin, the Los Angeles station manager for Skyline Airlines. "Mr. Carter, we have a car waiting to take you to your hotel," Steve said. "The company would also like to offer you a full refund and free first-class tickets to any destination we serve." Jordan shook his head. That's not necessary. But I would like to speak with someone about Nancy Powell. Steve looked uncomfortable. Ms. Powell has been fired, effective immediately. The company is prepared to pursue legal action if you wish, though we hope to resolve this matter without going to court. I don't want to sue anyone, Jordan said. Actually, I'd like to talk to her. Steve's eyebrows shot up. Talk to her? I'm not sure that's a good idea, Mr. Carter. Our legal team would strongly advise against it. I understand, Jordan said, but this is my decision. Can you arrange it? Steve hesitated but then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. May I ask why? Jordan looked around the busy airport terminal. People rushed past, focused on their own journeys. None of them knew what had happened on that plane, how a moment of bias had changed at least 2 lives forever. Because firing her doesn't solve the real problem, Jordan said. And I think I might have a better solution. Later that evening, Jordan sat in his hotel room and called his father. Darius answered immediately. Tell me about this idea of yours, Darius said after they had talked about the flight and Jordan's meeting in Los Angeles the next day. Jordan took a deep breath. I want to start a new program through the foundation, something to address bias in customer service industries. Go on, Darius said. His voice was neutral, but Jordan could tell his father was listening carefully. What happened today wasn't just about one flight attendant making a bad decision, Jordan explained. It's about a system that allows bias to affect how people are treated. Nancy Powell didn't wake up this morning planning to slap someone. She made assumptions based on how I looked, and then she couldn't back down when she was wrong. And you think training can fix that? Darius asked. Not just training, Jordan said. A complete program. Education about bias, yes, but also systems to help people recognize when they're making assumptions and ways for companies to respond better when incidents happen. Darius was quiet for a moment. You know, most people in your position would be angry. They'd want punishment, not solutions. I am angry, Jordan admitted. But I'm also tired of these things happening over and over. If all that comes from this is one person losing their job, nothing really changes. What do you need from me? Darius asked. Your connections, Jordan said. Skyline Airlines would be a good place to start. You sit on their board. If they adopt this program, other airlines might follow. Maybe hotels, restaurants, retail stores too. It would need a name, Darius said. Jordan could hear the smile in his father's voice. I was thinking Second Chance Initiative, and Jordan said, because everyone deserves a second chance to do better. The next morning, Jordan had his meeting with the technology company that wanted to partner with his father's foundation. It went well, but his mind was elsewhere. When he checked his phone afterward, he had a message from Steve Goodwin. Ms. Powell has agreed to meet with you. She'll be at the airport conference room at 2 p.m. if that works for you. Jordan texted back that he would be there. He spent the next few hours preparing what he wanted to say. This meeting would not be easy for either of them. The conference room at the airport was small and plain. Nancy Powell was already there when Jordan arrived. She looked different than she had on the plane. Her hair was pulled back and she wore no makeup. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. Mr. Carter, she said, standing up when he entered. Thank you for meeting with me. Jordan sat down across from her. Please call me Jordan. Nancy looked down at her hands. I want to say again how sorry I am. What I did was inexcusable. I've lost my job, but that seems like the least of what I deserve. How long did you work for Skyline? Jordan asked. 23 years, Nancy said. I started as a gate agent when I was 20. Worked my way up to senior flight attendant. I loved my job, even on the hard days. Her voice broke. I threw it all away in one stupid moment. Jordan studied her face. He saw genuine regret there, not just for the consequences to herself, but for what she had done. Why did you do it? He asked quietly. Nancy took a shaky breath. I wish I had a good answer. I was tired. I was stressed. I've been having money problems since my divorce last year, but none of that is an excuse. She looked up at him. The truth is, I made assumptions about you based on how you looked. I decided you didn't belong in first class because you were young and black and dressed casually. Then I was too proud to admit I was wrong." Jordan nodded, her honesty surprised him. Many people would make excuses or try to justify their actions. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I don't know," Nancy said. "No airline will hire me after this. I'll probably have to leave the industry completely," she sighed. "But that's not your problem. You didn't ask to meet me to hear about my troubles." "Actually, I did," Jordan said. "I want to understand what happened from your perspective, and I want to tell you about an idea I have." For the next hour, Jordan explained his concept for the Second Chance initiative. Nancy listened with growing interest as he described how it would work: education programs, policy changes, and a pathway for people who had made mistakes to learn and grow. The foundation would need people with industry experience to help develop these programs, Jordan concluded. People who understand the pressures and challenges of the job and who have seen firsthand how bias can affect decision-making. Nancy stared at him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to turn your mistake into something positive," Jordan said. "To help make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else." Nancy's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for me? After what I did?" Jordan thought about all the times in his life when he had been judged unfairly. All the times when people had made assumptions about him based on his skin color. Most of those people never realized their mistake. They never had to face the consequences of their bias. Nancy was different. She had crossed a line and had to confront what she had done. "Because change doesn't happen by punishing people and walking away," Jordan said. "It happens when we have hard conversations and then work together to do better." Nancy wiped her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Jordan replied. "This isn't a decision to make lightly. The work would be challenging. You would have to share your story, which means facing public criticism. But you would also be part of creating real change." Nancy nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." As they stood to leave, Nancy hesitated. "Can I ask you something? When I slapped you on that plane, you stayed so calm. How did you do that?" Jordan gave her a sad smile. "Years of practice. My father taught me that showing anger would only reinforce people's worst assumptions about me. So I learned to stay calm even when I'm furious inside." "That's not fair," Nancy said quietly. "No," Jordan agreed. "It's not. And that's exactly why this work is so important." As Jordan left the airport, his phone rang. It was his father. "I talked to the board at Skyline," Darius said. "They're interested in your initiative. Very interested, in fact. The CEO wants to meet with us next week." Jordan smiled. "That's great news, Dad." "There's more," Darius continued. "A video of the incident is starting to circulate online. The airline's PR team is working on a response." Jordan sighed. He had hoped the video wouldn't get out, but he wasn't surprised. "Maybe this is an opportunity. If people are going to be talking about what happened anyway, we might as well use it to launch the initiative." "My thoughts exactly," Darius said. "Are you ready for that kind of attention?" Jordan looked out the car window at the passing city. "I think so. Someone needs to stand up and say enough is enough. It might as well be me." The video spread across the internet faster than Jordan expected. By the next morning, it had millions of views. News channels played it on repeat. Social media was filled with angry comments. Some people defended Nancy, saying she must have been provoked. Others called for boycotts of Skyline Airlines. Jordan's name and face were everywhere. Jordan sat in his hotel room, watching the news coverage with a mix of frustration and determination. His phone kept ringing with calls from reporters wanting interviews. He declined them all for now. He needed to be strategic about how he responded. His father called around noon. "How are you holding up?" Darius asked. "I'm okay," Jordan said. "Just tired of seeing my face on TV." "The Skyline CEO wants to make a public statement today," Darius said. "They're worried about the damage to their reputation." Jordan frowned. "What kind of statement?" The usual corporate response. They'll apologize, say they've fired the employee responsible, promise to do better. That's not enough, Jordan said. If they really want to make things right, they need to commit to real change. I agree, Darius said. Which is why I think you should be part of their press conference. Talk about your initiative. Show people that something good can come from this. Jordan thought about it. He had never sought the spotlight. He preferred to work quietly behind the scenes at the foundation. But maybe this was a chance to turn the negative attention into something positive. Okay, he said. Set it up. 3 hours later, Jordan stood in a conference room at Skyline Airlines' Los Angeles office. Cameras and reporters packed the room. The airline's CEO, William Barker, a gray-haired man in an expensive suit, stood at a podium with Jordan beside him. What happened on Flight 237 was completely unacceptable, William said to the cameras. Skyline Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and violence. The employee involved has been terminated, and we are reviewing all our training procedures to ensure nothing like this happens again. He turned to Jordan. Mr. Carter has graciously agreed to speak with us today, and we are deeply grateful for his willingness to work with us on moving forward. Jordan stepped up to the microphone. He wore a simple blue suit with no tie. He had practiced what he wanted to say, but now, facing all those cameras, he decided to speak from the heart. My name is Jordan Carter. 2 days ago, I was slapped by a flight attendant who made assumptions about me based on how I look. That moment was recorded and has now been seen by millions of people. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. But what those videos don't show is what happens next. They don't show how we respond. They don't show whether we choose anger or understanding, punishment or growth. The room was completely quiet. Even the reporters who usually shouted questions were listening intently. I could be angry. I could demand that Skyline Airlines pay a large settlement. I could call for boycotts. But none of that would address the real problem. The problem isn't just one flight attendant who made a terrible mistake. The problem is a system that allows bias to affect how people are treated. Jordan gestured to William Barker. Today, I'm announcing a partnership between the Carter Foundation and Skyline Airlines. Together, we're launching the Second Chance Initiative, a comprehensive program to address bias in customer service industries. William stepped forward. Skyline Airlines is committing $10 million to this initiative. We will completely redesign our training programs, revise our hiring practices, and create new systems for responding to incidents like this. We're not just promising to do better, we're putting real resources behind that promise. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Carter, are you saying the flight attendant who assaulted you shouldn't have been fired? Jordan shook his head. Actions have consequences. What happened was serious and required a serious response. But firing one person doesn't solve the underlying problems. We need to change the environment that allows these incidents to happen in the first place. Another reporter called out, Will Ms. Powell face criminal charges? That's not up to me, Jordan said, but I personally have no interest in pressing charges. I've met with Ms. Powell and I believe she is genuinely sorry for her actions. This caused a stir in the room. Reporters began shouting questions all at once. William tried to restore order, but Jordan held up his hand. There's something else you should know, he said. The room quieted again. Ms. Powell has agreed to join the Second Chance Initiative as a consultant. Her experience, both as a long-time airline employee and as someone who made a serious mistake, will be valuable as we develop these programs. The reporters erupted with questions. William called on one near the front. Mr. Barker, isn't it risky to hire someone who was just fired for assault? Won't this send a message that such behavior is acceptable? William looked at Jordan, who nodded, slightly. We're not rehiring Ms. Powell as a flight attendant, William explained. She's joining the Carter Foundation to help develop training programs, and yes, there is risk involved. But meaningful change often requires taking risks. We believe this sends a powerful message that people can learn from their mistakes and contribute to positive change. After the press conference, Jordan and William met in a private office. Patricia Dawson, the airline executive who had come to the plane, joined them. That went better than I expected, William said. The initial social media response seems positive. People are calling it a masterclass in turning a negative into a positive. Jordan smiled. The hard work starts now. We need to make sure this isn't just a one-day news story. The initiative has to create real change. Patricia nodded. I've already started assembling a team to work on revising our training materials. We want to move quickly. And I've spoken with Nancy, Jordan added. She's nervous about her role, but she's committed. She understands that sharing her story might help others recognize their own biases before they lead to harmful actions. William looked at Jordan with respect. Most people in your position would have just taken a settlement and walked away. Why did you choose this path? Jordan thought about his father, who had built a business empire but always emphasized giving back. He thought about his mother, who had taught him that forgiveness wasn't about excusing wrong actions, but about creating space for growth. And he thought about all the times in his life when he had been judged unfairly. Because change doesn't happen by itself, Jordan said. Someone has to be willing to stand up and say there's a better way forward. That evening, Jordan finally returned the call of one reporter, Alicia Vega from the National Observer, a respected news magazine. He had chosen her carefully, knowing she had a reputation for thoughtful, in-depth reporting. Mr. Carter, thank you for speaking with me, Alicia said when they connected. I'd like to go beyond the press conference today and understand more about your personal response to what happened. What would you like to know? Jordan asked. You've shown remarkable composure and forgiveness, Alicia said. Where does that come from? Jordan looked out the window of his hotel room at the lights of Los Angeles below. It's not really about forgiveness, he said. It's about focus. I could focus on punishing one person, or I could focus on changing a system. I chose the option that might prevent this from happening to someone else. And working with Ms. Powell? Many people find that surprising. The easy path would be to make her the villain in this story, Jordan said. But real life isn't that simple. She made a terrible mistake, but she's also someone with 23 years of experience who understands the airline industry from the inside. That knowledge is valuable. Some would say you're being too forgiving, Alicia pressed. Jordan shook his head, even though she couldn't see him over the phone. This isn't about being nice, it's about being effective. Punishment might feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely leads to lasting change. I'm interested in results, not revenge. After the interview, Jordan called his father again to update him on the day's events. You did good, son, Darius said. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Dad, Jordan said. But this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work to do to make the initiative successful. One day at a time, Darius said. But you've already accomplished something important. You've changed the conversation. Instead of just another viral outrage video, you've created a story about solutions. As Jordan prepared for bed, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Nancy Powell. I watched the press conference, she wrote. Thank you for the second chance. I won't let you down. Jordan texted back. It's not about me. It's about making things better for everyone. He set his phone down and thought about the days ahead. There would be more press conferences, more meetings, more work to turn this idea into reality. The journey wouldn't be easy. Some people would criticize him for being too soft. Others would question his motives. But Jordan was ready for the challenge. Sometimes, he thought, it takes a painful moment to create the opportunity for real change. 6 months passed quickly. The Second Chance initiative grew from an idea into a real program with offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Jordan worked long hours, meeting with airline executives, hotel managers, restaurant owners, and retail chains. Many companies were eager to join the initiative after seeing the positive press Skyline Airlines had received. On a clear autumn morning, Jordan stood in front of a room filled with flight attendants at Skyline's training center. This was the first official training session of the initiative, and Jordan felt both nervous and excited. Good morning, everyone, Jordan said. Thank you for being part of this program. Today is the start of something important. The flight attendants watched him with curious expressions. Some seemed interested, Others looked skeptical. Jordan understood their doubts. Many had probably sat through countless training sessions. Over the years, listening to corporate talk about values and policies that didn't always match reality. "I'm not here to lecture you," Jordan continued. "I'm here to have an honest conversation about the challenges you face every day and how bias can affect the way we all treat people." A door opened at the back of the room, and Nancy Powell walked in. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. She stood straighter and her eyes were clear and confident. She had spent months helping develop the training program, interviewing flight attendants about their experiences, and sharing her own story with researchers.
"Many of you know Nancy," Jordan said. "She's going to lead today's session. She has unique insights that I think you'll find valuable." Jordan stepped aside and Nancy took his place at the front of the room. There was a moment of awkward silence.
Everyone knew who she was and what she had done. The video of her slapping Jordan had been seen worldwide. "6 months ago, I made a terrible mistake," Nancy began. Her voice was steady. "I judged someone based on how they looked, and then I couldn't admit I was wrong. That mistake cost me my job of 23 years, and it nearly destroyed my life." The room was completely quiet. No one moved or whispered. But something unexpected happened, Nancy continued. "The person I hurt chose to give me a second chance, not because what I did was okay, it wasn't, but because he believed that my experience could help others avoid making the same mistake." For the next 2 hours, Nancy led the training session. She talked about the pressures flight attendants face: difficult passengers, long hours, personal stress. She explained how these pressures can make people more likely to rely on quick judgments and stereotypes, and she shared research on how to recognize and overcome bias. The flight attendants asked questions, shared their own experiences, and engaged deeply with the material. By the end of the session, even the skeptical ones seemed impressed. As people filed out of the room, William Barker, the Skyline CEO, approached Jordan. "That was remarkable," William said. "I've never seen our staff so engaged in a training session." Jordan nodded. "Nancy makes it real. This isn't just theory for her. It's something she lived through." "The board is very pleased with the initiative so far," William said. "The early results are promising. Customer complaints about discriminatory treatment are down 30% since we started implementing the new policies." "That's good news," Jordan said. "But we're just getting started." After the training session, Jordan and Nancy had lunch at a small cafe near the training center. They had developed a strong working relationship over the past months. What had started as an awkward partnership had grown into a genuine friendship, based on mutual respect. "You were great today," Jordan said. "Those flight attendants really listened to you." Nancy smiled. "It gets a little easier each time. Sharing my story is still painful, but it feels good to turn it into something useful." "The hotel chain training starts next week," Jordan said. "Are you ready for that?" Nancy nodded. "I've been studying the materials. The challenges are different in hotels, but the underlying issues are similar." As they ate, a woman approached their table. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you Jordan Carter and Nancy Powell?" They nodded, and the woman continued. "I just wanted to thank you both. My son is Black, and he travels a lot for his job. The stories he tells me about how he's treated..." She shook her head. "What you're doing matters. It really does." After the woman left, Nancy wiped tears from her eyes. "Sometimes I forget that this is about real people, not just policies and training sessions." "That's why we do this work," Jordan said, "to make things better for people like her son." That evening, Jordan flew back to New York. His father met him for dinner at their favorite restaurant, a small Italian place that had been serving the Carter family for years. The owner greeted them warmly and led them to a private table in the back. "The initiative is getting attention from other industries," Darius said after they ordered. "I had calls this week from banking executives, healthcare administrators, even law enforcement agencies. They all want to know if your program could work for them." Jordan considered this. It would require some major adaptations. Each industry has its own challenges. "But the core principles are the same," Darius pointed out. "Recognizing bias, creating accountability systems, changing the culture." Jordan nodded. "We'd need to expand the team. Hire experts from those industries. The foundation can provide the funding, Darius said, if you want to take this further. Jordan thought about how far they had come in just 6 months. What had started as a painful incident on an airplane had grown into something with the potential to create real change across multiple industries. I do, he said. But we need to make sure we're doing it right, not just doing it fast. Darius smiled proudly at his son. You've turned a negative experience into something powerful. Not many people could have done that. The next morning, Jordan had a video meeting with Alicia Vega, the reporter who had covered the story from the beginning. She was working on a follow-up article about the initiative's progress. The response to your program has been overwhelmingly positive, Alicia said. But you must have faced some challenges along the way. Jordan nodded. Many companies want the good publicity that comes with joining the initiative, but some aren't ready to do the hard work of actually changing their culture. We've had to be selective about our partnerships. And how has it been working with Nancy Powell? Alicia asked. That must have been difficult at first. It was, Jordan admitted. But Nancy has been incredibly committed. She could have walked away after the incident, found another job, and tried to forget what happened. Instead, she faces it every day and uses it to help others learn. After the interview, Jordan visited the initiative's New York office. The space was busy with activity. Researchers analyzed data from the first training sessions. Program developers worked on materials for new industries. A communications team prepared for the initiative's first national conference. Nancy was there too, meeting with a team developing a mobile app that would help companies track and respond to incidents of bias. She waved to Jordan as he walked in. Jordan felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he looked around the office. This was what progress looked like. People working together to solve a problem that many thought was unsolvable. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. CNN wants to do a feature story on the initiative. They want to interview both you and Nancy. Are you interested? Jordan texted back. Yes, but only if they focus on the work, not just the incident that started it. As he put his phone away, Jordan thought about that day on the plane 6 months ago. At the time, it had felt like just another painful reminder of the bias he had faced throughout his life. He could never have imagined that it would lead to this, a growing movement for change that was beginning to spread across industries. Nancy approached him, holding a tablet with the latest data from Skyline Airlines. The numbers keep improving, she said. Passenger satisfaction is up and reports of discriminatory treatment are down. Jordan smiled. That's what matters. Real changes that make a difference in people's lives. All because you made a phone call instead of getting angry, Nancy said. And because you saw potential in me when everyone else just saw someone who had made a terrible mistake. We all make mistakes, Jordan said. What matters is what we learn from them and what we do next. As they walked through the busy office, Jordan felt hopeful about the future. There was still so much work to do, so many industries to reach, so many minds to change. But they had made a start. And sometimes that was the hardest part. The incident on that plane could have been just another viral video, another moment of outrage quickly forgotten. Instead, it had become the beginning of something that might actually change how people treated each other, not just in airplanes but everywhere. All because one person had decided that real change was more important than revenge.